You're probably thinking, I would love to live in Destin, Florida, but everything's just too dang expensive. And I get it completely, because when I was relocating here 20 years ago, I felt the exact same way. And that's why today we're going to be talking about one of the inland suburbs of Destin that's going to offer all of the benefits of being able to commute to all of the action without all of the drawbacks like price and tourism of Destin itself. And as we start to deep dive into this suburb, we're going to talk about housing prices, commute times, and overall daily life of what it's like living a little bit more inland in Destin. And in this case, it's going to be Crestview. So this way you can decide whether moving inland is a smarter move or if being steps away from the beach is the right move for you. What is going on? My name is Andrew, or of course you can call me Mongo, and I've got a lot of things, in fact, pages and pages of notes of things I'd like to go over regarding moving inland and in particular to Crestview, Florida. So let's go ahead and start with what the overall vibe is here in Crestview and what it looks like day to day. First and foremost, we've got to start with an overview of Crestview in general. Crestview is what we call a hub city. In fact, it's kind of its nickname. It's called Crestview, the hub city. And that is because it is right smack dab in the center of several different interstates, including I-10. So you've got quick access, relatively, you've still got to drive the mileage, to east and west, north and south pretty easily, and it's all running right through Crestview. Not only do you have easy access to I-10, but you've got easy access to multiple military installations, as well as the beaches in Destin and Fort Walton Beach. And really any of the coastal towns you can kind of choose between. The difference isn't that big of a deal, at least when it comes to commute times, which we will be talking about here in just a moment. Crestview's got that small town charm, but don't let that fool you because it is growing rapidly. In fact, they just put in a 2-lane Chick-fil-A there a couple of years ago, and I will tell you what, it is always busy. Now, we'll talk about some of the other things that Crestview offers as well, but that's just a little sneak peek into this city. Crestview is a favorite with our military families relocating here because it is located right outside of Duke Field, and it is very quick access to Eglin Air Force Base as well. But don't worry if you're not active duty or even affiliated with the military in any way, shape, or form. Crestview is still a great place, and this video is going to show you exactly why. The daily pace of Crestview can change day to day, and for the most part, the traffic isn't too terrible unless you're commuting during peak times. Then it might not be your favorite. Crestview also boasts a pretty charming downtown area where they hold lots of different events and of course have a bunch of boutique shops that you should definitely visit if you're here in the area. All right, now that we got a generalized overview out of the way, let's talk about one of the most important things that is going to make your decision or break it whenever moving to an area, and that's cost of living. The number one cost of living anytime you're moving anywhere is going to be your housing costs. Everything else is definitely a factor, but that is always going to be one of the number one factors, if not the number one in just about any place I can think of. One of Crestview's biggest draws is affordability. In fact, out of all of the different towns here in our area, there's very few that have the amount of bang for your buck as Crestview, Florida does. There are definitely towns in our scope, and by the way, we cover everything from Pensacola to Panama City Beach and everything in between, so if you've got any questions on those, let us know. But when it comes to all of the inland towns that we're talking about, there are a couple that are definitely more affordable. But as far as having all of the amenities, having all of the shopping, and not needing to leave the town for things, Crestview just can't be beat. Well, what does that look like? The median home price last month in Crestview was $319,000. And that's on par for about what it was last year. The market's kind of steady over here. But $319,000 doesn't tell the whole picture. What exactly are you getting for $319,000? If you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you know that some of the other cities in our scope are also around that same pricing, but you're definitely not getting near as much of a house. So for that price, you can expect a 3 to 4 bedroom most of the time. There were a few 5 and 6 bedrooms currently sprinkled in right now when I did my search. But for the most part, it's going to be a 3 or 4 bedroom. They're going to be relatively newer. I'm putting relatively like in the last 30, 40 years. There are definitely going to be some in the last 10 and 20 years, and some of them are going to be just a little bit older than that. For the most part, the much older homes, unless they've been completely, revamped and beautified up, are generally going to be a little bit lower than that. So keep in mind, this is just median. You can definitely find something in the 200s here in Crestview. In fact, you can even find stuff in the 100s, although those are going to be few and far between. And the really cool thing with Crestview is it's not as landlocked as some of our other areas. Most of our other coastal cities were built up, and with a few exceptions. And so they're trying to take an old house, tear it down to build something new. Well, in Crestview, there's plenty of land left, so there's still a bunch of new neighborhoods. In fact, 50% of the homes at the average price point, when I did a search of plus or minus 10,000, so 309 to 329,000, half of those homes that are actively for sale right now were new construction. Homes here in Crestview tend to be a little bit larger, a little bit newer, a little bit better amenities, and larger lot sizes, which is definitely a big bonus from some of our other cities. Now, the actual home price itself isn't the only thing we need to consider, because insurance and taxes can absolutely make a $319,000 home feel like a $400,000 home if they're too high. Fortunately for us here in Florida, that's not the case. I know that you're hearing a lot of things, if you're doing your research, that Florida's insurance rates are absolutely insane, but please keep in mind that that's a little bit more further south in Florida. Here in the Panhandle, we're not quite hit as hard, and we generally don't get hit as hard with the hurricanes either, or I should say as often. That does not mean that we won't get hit. It's just saying that there's this entire portion of Florida just sticking out like a sore thumb. They tend to get hit a little bit more, and their insurance rates fall with that. In fact, I just did a video not too many weeks or months ago here on this channel about a home that we had just closed, where it was a $335,000 home. The insurance was $907 per year. Now, this was a newer home, or it might have been new construction. I actually don't remember off the top of my head now, but the entire point is the insurance rates are not overly concerning. Now, it is generally a little bit higher than that. That was sort of an anomaly. But for a $319,000 home, you can generally expect somewhere around $1,400 to $1,800 per year in costs for insurance. And that includes your wind. That will not include flood. However, Crestview is the highest flood elevation in the state, so it's not generally a concern. But if you'd like to get flood insurance, it generally runs about $350 per year. So that can give you a little peace of mind. If you happen, for whatever reason, to be on a floodplain in Crestview, which I don't even know if they have any, but let's pretend you are, then that cost might go up just a little bit. And we do get asked this quite a lot. Your homeowner's insurance here in Florida does cover hurricanes. A lot of times people will call us and ask us, hey, what does insurance look like? Okay, cool. What about hurricane insurance after that? No, listen, they're the same thing. We call it wind insurance. It's part of the entire package, and it's just part of it. Now they've got insurance out of the way. Let's talk about taxes. Taxes in Crestview are going to be largely determined by if you're in the city or if you're in the county. That's going to be the biggest jump. The next biggest jump is going to be, was it homesteaded by the owner before you or by any owner before you? And what were the taxes like then? What did you purchase the property at? And are you going to homestead the property? For those that are unaware, homesteading is something we have here in Florida, where it essentially just lowers your taxes, the amount that you're paying every single year. I'm not going to go into the super minute details on it, but it lowers your taxes and it keeps your taxes from raising more than 3% year over year. This is how you keep your tax bill down. But for a property at about $319,000, you can expect your tax bill to be somewhere between $1,400 and about $1,800 per year. Some of them will, of course, creep a little bit over than that. And of course, it's all based dependent on the property price that you paid for the property. So don't look at the last tax bill. A lot of people will do that and say, hey, the taxes are $1,100 per year, and I calculate it, which, by the way, we do for you here on this team. So then we calculate it and we show it to them, and they're like, well, what happened? I didn't think it was going to jump up. It's going to jump up based on the purchase price that you have. Don't worry, we'll calculate all of that for you. If you do happen to move to the area, give us a call. We run a full net sheet for you, so there's no surprises, because I do not like surprises. And speaking of that, I do run a real estate team in the area here. We've got professionals in every single city along the Emerald Coast, including 2 in Crestview. So if Crestview is something that is on your list, all of my information will pop up on the screen. You can call, text, email. We're even going to throw a QR code here. In case you're watching on the TV, you want to pull out your phone real quick and get a hold of us, you can do so right here or here, wherever I decide to put it. All right, well, that's all well and good for like affordability and living in the area, but what does living in the area look like? How long is it going to be of a commute to get to some of the things I want to do? When I was considering Crestview 20 years ago, which I did, and I'm so glad I didn't, by the way, this is the reason why it's the commutes for me personally. But for a lot of people, these commute times aren't anything. It wasn't a big deal. For me, it was. I wanted to be as close to the bases as possible, because at the time I was working at Eglin Air Force Base and I was getting transferred to Hurlburt Field. which are very, very close to each other, but I wanted to be a little bit closer. So let's talk about some of those commute times to see if this is a deal breaker for you. So when we're talking about commute times, we have to get the drive time to the beach out of the way. We've got some of the best beaches in the world, in my personal opinion. It's white powder sand, beautiful blue and emerald green colors in the water, great wildlife. It's just an overall outstanding beach. You want to make sure that you're able to drive to it, because most people that are relocating here are doing so because of the beaches and the water activities in general. So from the heart of Crestview, it's going to take about 30 to 45 minutes. Keep in mind that all of these timelines I'm going to give you here are from the heart of Crestview. And Crestview kind of has a little bit of a wide range. In fact, it could be 20 to 30 minutes just to get to the northern side of Crestview. So these numbers can change dramatically depending on how north you go. So to get to the beach, about 30 to 45 minutes. Now, if you happen to be stationed at Duke Field, that's going to be about 10 to 20 minutes. And then, of course, if you need to go to the nearest airport, it will be the VPS or Destin-Fort Walton Beach Airport, which will be just about 20 to 25 minutes away. This will be the primary airport for just about everything you do, unless you like flying out of Pensacola, flying, I think it is Southwest. It's out there a little bit more commonly than it is here at VPS, but VPS is going to be the primary one. But maybe you're flying international, which that's what Pensacola is. It's Pensacola International Airport. That'll be about 45 minutes away from the center of Crestview. Now, there is a hospital there in Crestview, but in case you need to go for a little bit more specialized care, generally heading south into Fort Walton Beach will be your best bet, and that hospital is about 25 minutes away. And then, of course, you've got other hospitals in the area. We've got Sacred Heart out in the Destin area, so you could drive to that one, which will be approximately the same commute as well. Those of you that are attached to the VA in some sort of way, you've got about 25 minutes to get to the VA in Fort Walton Beach, and almost an hour to get to the one in Pensacola, which is a main hub for the area. For those of you that just love shopping, you're trying to go find a new bag or some great new polarized sunglasses so you can see through the water here in our area, which, by the way, that's a real thing. Get polarized before you come down here. You can see right through. It's amazing. Anyway, if you're looking for shopping, your shopping is going to be 35 minutes away in the Destin Commons. You might know that if you know the area as well. If you don't, we've got a video on it. Maybe we'll throw it up here in the annotations. And then about 45 minutes away will be the Silver Sands Outlets. That's probably the best shopping in our area, in my personal opinion. It's huge. It's a bunch of outlets. It's got to be over 100 of them. It's a huge, huge footprint. They got a cool little Starbucks right in the middle of it, so you can grab your little Starbucks drink, get some energy, and head over to Sunglass Hut or whichever place you're going to. They've got Oakley and Nike, and there's so many. I'm not even going to try to name them. I don't know why I started. There's a lot there at Silver Sands Outlets, and like I said, that's about 45 minutes away. Now, there is one small thing I need to make sure that I mention is if you are coming into Destin from 283, which is the road that you would essentially go into if you didn't go around through Fort Walton, which a lot of times is a nightmare to do because Fort Walton can get backed up, so sometimes it's worth paying it, but there's a toll bridge there. The toll bridge costs $4 for people every time they go on and off for people who are not SunPass holders. If you are a SunPass holder, which is completely free, I'm pretty sure you just need to be registered here in Florida, but that will knock it down to $3 per trip. Those are going to be your commute times for the primary things you might find important in your move. And of course, there's a bunch of other things nearby, like, Blackwater River State Forest, which, by the way, is the best for like tubing or kayaking down Blackwater River. Very cool experience there. You can go out jeeping and hiking. There's a bunch of stuff to do. And that's just about 20 to 25 minutes away, depending on where at in Blackwater River State Forest you're going. The really big thing to note here is whenever you're moving a little bit more inland, that's the trade-off you're making, is bang for your buck or the affordability, but with a little bit more commute. And for some people that doesn't, you're probably listening to this and you're going 25 minutes to almost most things. Like, this isn't even that big of a deal, but it is to some people. It was to me when I first moved here. So that's why I need to make sure that I mention it to you. Meanwhile, we have other folks that call us. In fact, we just had somebody close, I don't know, maybe about a month and a half ago. Found us on YouTube, just like you guys are watching us right now, and they have been to the beach every single weekend since. Now, I know it's season right now, so of course they want to go out all the time, and they just moved here, but they're going out every single week, and I just talked to them last weekend, and they were just saying, like, this like 30, 35 minutes most of the time Not a big deal at all. She's like, it's just enough. Like, the kids aren't getting stir crazy in the back seat or anything. They're playing on their tablets. We hit the beach and they're just having a good old time. So for some folks, big deal. Other folks, not as much. I'm curious which one it is for you. Drop a comment down below if you think 35 to 45 minutes to get to the beach is too much. But actually, before you answer, let's put up the beaches one more second here. All right, go ahead and answer now. 35 minutes to that, would that be all right? Let's talk about a couple other things before I get into the pros and cons, which I think you want to stick around for. But let's talk about some of the growth here in Crestview. I would consider Crestview right on the verge of rural / going into suburb a little bit, or suburbia, if you will. And so with a lot of like rural type towns, a lot of it is ma and pa places, okay? But here in Crestview, it's not. I mean, there's definitely a good chunk of it that's ma and pa, nice little boutiques, nice little shops. But there's also some of the bigger chains, as I mentioned before, the Chick-fil-A, Walmart, and of course, my personal favorite, Taco Bell. So my point here is you're probably not going to miss that much. If it's a specialty store or something that you're looking for, yeah, you may have to travel. But for the most part, the basics are right here. Whenever I talk to past clients that have moved to Crestview, one of the things that they point out quite often is the quiet, slower pace. In fact, I've got a friend that has lived in Fort Walton, Navarre, and now Crestview, and she says of all of the places, Crestview is the most quiet, it's the most laid back. What's funny about that is she lives in a new construction neighborhood too, so that's a little bit tighter knit than some of the other neighborhoods. So she feels that way in a new construction neighborhood where the houses are a bit closer to each other. Well, that says something about that city. But of course, that comes at a downfall. I would not expect too much nightlife and partying and clubbing, at least not in Crestview. You are going to have to travel a little bit, and that's going to make your Uber, hopefully you're Ubering if you're drinking, a little bit more expensive, so keep that in mind. All right, let's go ahead and break it down to the bare minimum here. We kind of touched on a lot of these different things, but I want to go into the pros and cons and just make sure I haven't left anything out. Number one pro, affordable homes. You can't beat it. I mean, there are very few places that you can get houses at the same caliber as you can here in Crestview for that price. Sure, you can definitely find houses in the 300s in Fort Walton and Navarre. Heck, you might even see a townhome or two in Destin. But for the size that you're going to get and how pretty the house is going to be in comparison, the upgrades that are going to be in the house in comparison, Crestview is definitely the place to be. Then, of course, we've got low insurance and taxes, which help with that affordability. And on top of that, they've got a great sense of community. High school games and just farmers markets and different things going on in the town are generally attended by quite a lot of people because that sense of community is so strong. And that extends out into the individual communities as well. Then, of course, for anybody commuting to the military bases, it is close in proximity to those, so that makes your commute a little bit shorter, which is a good deal. And probably my favorite pro of the whole thing that I didn't hit on too much in this video, I sort of just kind of briefly tapped on it, is the access to the outdoor activities. Going up or going a little bit further south to go to the Eglin Range and, driving your vehicle out there, going hiking, whatever, going to Blackwater River State Forest, going to the springs, which, well, those would be a little bit of a trek, an hour or so. But the point is there's so much close by that you can really enjoy nature in general. Things that are a little bit different than just hitting the beach. Hey, listen, the beach is great. Don't get me wrong. There's only so many times you can see one of the most beautiful beaches. I'm just kidding. It never gets old. The beach never gets old. But at least you will have other options. Go kayaking, go tubing, things like that. All right, let's get into the cons here. Con number one, you're not on the beach. It's kind of a big con. And with that comes longer commute times to all of the coastal fun, not just the beach itself, but any aspect of water activities on a harbor, in a bay, on the Sound, or in the Gulf of Mexico. Heck, even Crab Island is a little bit further. So that's definitely something to consider. And a big one I didn't even mention yet, limited public transportation. In fact, I don't really know of any public transportation in Crestview, although I could be misspeaking. If there is something, it's a little tiny short bus. I see them driving around every once in a while, so maybe that's what it's for. Maybe it is public, but probably not the best way to get around. And then, of course, you've got fewer upscale dining options. There is a pretty solid steakhouse there, but it's a smaller town. And last time I was there, they didn't have their liquor license yet. I don't know if they're able to get one because it's harder to get out in Crestview. So you had to bring your own wine with you or whatever you wanted to drink, which is just, when you're going to a steak place, like, I don't know. I don't want to have to bring my own bottle of wine and have them open it and pour it for me. Like, it just seems weird, right? So that is kind of a downfall. There's no real elegant, fancy. You want to get up in a, beautiful dress and get dressed up to the nines to go to dinner. You might want to go to Destin or on 30A or heck, even a couple of places in Fort Walton. Or dress up and go to Taco Bell. Not the worst idea. All right, and the biggest con that Crestview has, I just talked about it again, it's the traffic. The traffic still sucks. You're not getting the tourist traffic. It's different traffic. That's the worst part, because this traffic doesn't go away. It's there from like 8 in the morning to 10 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon to 6 in the afternoon when you're heading back home. If you're traveling during those two times, it's not going to be fun. Your 35-minute commute can turn into an hour pretty quickly, like in just full transparency. It can be brutal. And if there's a wreck or something happens, I've been stuck on that road for 2 hours before. It's super, super rare. I can count on half of my one hand the amount of times that has happened, but it still isn't fun when it happens. And there's no way around it. Like, traffic happens in Destin. There's a couple of sneaky ways to get around some of it. People figure that out. Those get a little bit backed up, but it's not as bad. At Crestview, you're stuck. All of the entire road headed from Crestview south and, of course, south of Crestview back into it north, on either side, east and west, is completely owned by the Eglin Range. So they can't do anything about it. And not only can they not do anything about it, but you can't skirt it. You can't find a different route like you can in a larger city. All right, if after going through the pros and cons and everything we talked about, you're thinking, I don't know if Crestview is the right one for me, but I'm still looking. I still want to be near Destin. Like, where do I go? Hey, don't worry. We got you covered. We have a 38-page guide right now. We'll throw a QR code up. Again, if you're watching from your TV, snap a photo. If you're watching from your phone, we'll put a link down in the description below. It's 100% free. All you've got to do is drop in your email, and it will send it right over to you. Don't worry, we're not going to spam you like crazy or anything, but we do want to make sure that you get that guide. Full PDF form, and it goes through every single town along the Emerald Coast to make sure that you are informed as possible. All right, the very last thing I want to make sure I go over is, who is Crestview the best for? Let's get into it. First-time homebuyers are families that want space but want a lot more bang for their buck than in other cities. Hands down. Like that's the theme of the video today, is bang for your buck. Number 2, military or contractors, anybody affiliated with the military that are going to be near Duke Field, 7th Special Forces, or Eglin Air Force Base. Any of those 3, this is going to be probably one of the better cities for you, unless you want a completely different lifestyle than maybe Niceville or something like that. Number 3, buyers that are priced out of Destin, Niceville, or 30A. All 3 of those have completely different price points. Niceville and Destin being fairly close to each other, surprising enough. I know Niceville is an inland town, but it doesn't follow some of the same rules as all the other inland towns. Niceville's a little bit pricey. Of course, 30A is way up there as well. If there are any remote workers or retirees out there that maybe you're not having to worry about work and you just want a little bit of space and a little bit of peace and quiet, without isolation. You don't want to be in a super rural town, because we have those, by the way. We have some other inland towns that offer a little bit more, a little bit more house for what you're getting, a little bit more affordability, but it's off the beaten path. You're not going to get all the stuff. So if you want the stuff, you want the ease of having everything nearby, then this might be a good option for you. And of course, the last one, the big theme of the day, those that want affordability and don't mind a short commute to things. If Crestview sounds like it might fit your lifestyle and budget, then go ahead and learn a little bit more about it. Right here, we're going to throw up a Crestview playlist. We do videos every single Tuesday at 4 p.m. We'll see you next week.